Hello and welcome to another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Patrick.
I'm Fritz.
And we're here to give you this week's reading recommendations for New Comic Book Day here from Pulp Comics and Games.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I realize that it's our YouTube page and it's usually shared on our Facebook page, but maybe I could brand a little bit more.
What you should do is you should have like an image of our logo just on the video doing like the bouncing on the screen, like the old like DVD like idle screen where like you're constantly like waiting for it to hit the corner right and it just never does.
Oh, right. And they can all sit around and cheer if it were. Yeah.
Anyways.
All right. Well, we've got a couple returning titles and a returning, I don't know, it's not really genre. They're doing a specific thing with what you've got going here. So
we'll get right into that then. So my pick this week is Universal Monsters, because that's how you have to look it up if you're trying to find it in the system.
Correct.
Universal Monsters, Creature from the Black Lagoon Lives. So this series, similar to last year, there was the new like Dracula comic that they put out. Basically, what they're doing is Universal Studios. They got all the like old monster stuff like Dracula, Creature, Wolfman, all that kind of stuff. They recently like inked a deal with Skybound over Image to like they're not like adaptations of the old films. Really, they're kind of like reimaginings of certain things.
Yeah.
And this is like the newest one they put out. I love the Dracula one that got on here a couple times for that series. This one now is a new series from Dan Waters and Ram V, two guys who have shown up in here a lot. Honestly, the amount of stuff that they put out just this week alone could have been the video. But you've got them, and then Matthew Roberts on art, and Dave Stewart, who I think I double-checked has done a lot of like stuff with Ram V, like coloring on different books. Sure. But they like just knock out of the park with this. So the story starts off, we've got this like reporter, she's kind of investigating these like murders down in like kind of like the Amazon region. And at first you think like, oh, she's there to like investigate the titular creature. And then you find out she doesn't even think it's real. She's like trying to track this like former like soldier who's like turned into like kind of like a serial killer kind of thing.
Oh.
And it's heavily implied that like it's maybe a bit more personal than it should be for her. And she's like running herself ragged. She's like taking drugs to stay awake so she can like be there anytime this guy pops up somewhere. And she's just like pushing herself to the edge, and it kind of catches up with her. And without getting like too deep into the spoiler territory, obviously, it kind of facilitates her like presumably first interaction with the creature.
Gotcha.
And it's interesting the way they're kind of like they're like setting up the dynamic that the creature has with like the rest of the world around him, because like there's definitely like things attributed to like, oh, like there's like these like mysterious drownings and stuff, but like that's also how the one guy kills people. So like, is it him? Is it the creature? Is the creature good or bad? Like what exactly is its nature? And that is kind of the core thing that I'm very excited to see where it goes. It's just like, because like part of what I loved about the film a couple years ago, Shape of Water, is it took like that core concept and kind of like flipped it on its head. It's just like, yeah, what if the like this creature, this monster is just like basically just a guy,
right?
Like that is thrown into this horrible situation, and I don't expect it to be like quite like that in this, but I am very curious to see like how they approach it, like what they do to kind of like tinker with like the old like these like unknown things that lurk in the deep. Like I'm super excited, and the art is just gorgeous. Like it's gorgeous. The use of color. I part of why I mentioned Dave Stewart is because I mentioned Drowning. Like there's just like the way like the colors used kind of like fade, like your vision fading and everything in here. It's just like it's super good. I don't know if you're looking for like a fun little horror comic that is gorgeous to look at and fun to read. Couldn't recommend this highly enough. But speaking of Ram V doing something that also has some kind of horror elements, over to you, Patrick.
Yes, I went with Rare Flavors #5. This has been one of my absolute favorite books. I was trying to describe it to a friend of mine the other day. And, you know, we talk a lot in here about how comics aren't just superhero
Mhm.
stuff, right? Like in the origin of comics was not just superhero
Mhm.
stuff. In fact, superheroes kind of broke through from a lot of detective and crime and funny animals and romance and slice of life and that kind of stuff. And because of the way that things worked out, superheroes ended up being the primary subject of comic books. This has nothing to do with any superheroes whatsoever. So we've picked this this title a number of times. We've got a documentary filmmaker and a demon, and they're traveling the countryside in India, discovering people who are making foods in a very traditional kind of way at an excellent level, and they're trying to make a documentary about it. And all of this is kind of the way in which this demon is kind of trying to come to grips with himself. He knows what he is. He's a primordial force, basically. But he feels there's something more to him than that. And by the way, there's demon hunters chasing them. So we're wrapping up the story, but jump in.
So I just want to say, one of the things I loved with this, because like we've had these demon hunters this whole series, and this issue we kind of like actually get to learn more about them. It's just like oh, you like totally get like why like they're the way they are. Like it's like it doesn't excuse the times they've been kind of like maybe not the best people so far, but it's just like, oh, but they're people still.
Right. And so and I think that comes to the heart of what Ram V appears to be trying to do in this book, which is humanize all the characters. And one way that people can relate with their own humanity and also how we all as people are connected together and have a lot of similarities is through the appreciation of food. And in this particular issue, touches upon how food can be a melting pot of culture, where people from totally different backgrounds, or not really totally different geographies, but neighboring geographies, come together to create something that is both similar to two different cultures, but then completely unique. And it was really great.
There's a great bit in there where they're first like talking about like the recipe for this one, and they like put like encounters in quotation marks to kind of like gloss over like some of the like what that actually means. I love like the use of language too, like in here for it.
The storytelling is done so deftly in this entire series, and I'm sure that almost everybody that watches, is interested in comic books to begin with. I doubt that we get very many just random people who come across our videos.
I would love if this comic, anytime we get it on here, somehow it gets like food people in here. It's like, what's happening?
Yeah, this would be a great book if you've got a friend who's a foodie and maybe likes slightly offbeat stories. I don't know, a little bit maybe supernatural or slightly horror, because it doesn't get super graphic,
especially not in this issue.
No,
in particular,
but they kind of allude a lot to some violence and what. I mean, the main character is a demon, so. But this would be a great way to get them into reading comics, because it's so different from what you think of when the average person thinks of comic books. The art is amazing. This book has been so incredibly consistent all the way through. It's definitely going to make one of our top graphic novel picks, because it is just such an interesting concept, with having the combination of not just talking about food, but having recipes and watching them making the food and talking about how that food touched people's lives in the book. It's crazy.
Would you say it's a rare flavor of a comic?
It is indeed.
Yeah. I hate myself.
Highly recommend it. Well, all right. So let's move on quickly then.
Yeah.
And this will surprise absolutely no one. Is this 4 for 4?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It is Ultimate Spider-Man issue 4, aka the dinner date issue.
Yes. So while not every comic book is about superheroes, some of the very best are.
Though funny enough, in a weird way, this it's absolutely about superhero stuff in here. Like there's a conversation between Peter and Harry in this issue
Mm.
that I absolutely genuinely love. But at the same time, it's wrapped up in the guise of like, oh, it's just like a fun couples dinner date thing. Like
Yes.
the fact that this is an issue that one, with spoiler, doesn't feature a whole lot of Spider-Manning. Like it's a dinner date issue. It's a lot of like talking and having fun between friends,
Mhm.
and that it's got a fill-in artist, and it still might be one of my favorite issues of this run so far.
Yeah.
It tells you just how like the caliber that they're working on here.
And again, Hickman gets Spider-Man
Mm-hmm.
so well in that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, you know, like not the other way around. He's always Peter Parker. When he's in the suit, he's still Peter Parker. He's trying to be the best Peter Parker that he can be. The only reason Spider-Man exists is because he's trying to protect the people around him, right? So that's the idea of the Spider-Man identity. Whereas, you know, a lot of superheroes, they're, especially in kind of classic superhero comics, their secret identity is, or their personal life is secondary, right? We just hear about the superhero and everything's about the superhero. That's why Spider-Man was such a revolutionary comic. Why he still is so relatable today is because it's his personal problems are, you know, first and foremost.
And his like personal interactions, like, and even just like the cast around him, like there's some cutaways to Uncle Ben having to like babysit the kids,
right?
And
with J. Jonah Jameson, which they're my favorite crusty curmudgeons in comics.
Like the fact that this is a series where like I could read a series that's just Ben and Jonah doing their thing. I could read there's Mary Jane and a certain character in here have some fun conversations where it's like I could just read a comic about these two.
Yeah.
Like it's, and that's something that I feel like you don't get quite as much in a lot of superhero comics anymore. Is like you don't like have these like big supporting casts where you've got these like interpersonal dynamics between them that like don't even necessarily relate to the superhero stuff half the time. It's just like, or at least like not on a like surface level. It's so good, and you know like somehow it's all going to start like threading together.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and you know they're talking about kind of some big issue stuff here for the characters, but they're also having to make small talk and you know what's kind of behind some of that stuff. It's really good. The Uncle Ben and J. Jonah come up with a name for their new online news company. It's really good.
I love Jonah's like, you know, I hate being clever.
It's so good. This is where you can tell a new story with old characters that still feels comfortable. Like, you know, a favorite old chair or, you know, what have you. A good worked in pair of jeans where it's something slightly new, but it still feels right and comfortable. And Hickman's just nailing that with all of these characters. They still feel like themselves. They're just in a different situation.
Yeah. And I feel like I should, because like I mentioned before that we've got a fill-in artist. So like for, I think it's this issue and next issue, David Messina is filling in for Kaketo so we can like stay ahead of it. And honestly, he does such a good job here with like, his expression work is fantastic. Because when you're having like a issue where it's just a lot of people kind of like talking to each other around a table, that does a lot of the heavy lifting, and he absolutely nails it on that front. Like,
yeah, I loved the angles. The framing of everything was really,
like
really good.
Like just the raised eyebrow here or a smirk there, just like really just conveys exactly what you need to know about how this character is feeling, regardless of whether it matches what they're saying or not. Like, because they're like, there's constantly points where it's just like, who knows who's like, what do they mean when they say this thing?
Yes. Yep. Yep. It's just been excellent. And, you know, by far our best selling title now, it is blowing everybody else away at this point, and there's a reason for it. And it continues to, feels like it's picking up steam for me. Like, you know, a lot of times it gets out to, you know, a good issue or two, and then, you know, as they've got to kind of lay the groundwork for where it's going to go, it kind of hits a lull and whatever, but not here at all. It's extremely well done. So, well, that's it for. Oh no, that's not it for this week because we're going to do a couple shout outs. I almost forgot. So there's a couple local creators who have new books that they worked on this week. So Brent Schoonover.
Do you want me to like stand up and point at things?
Well,
so that way you're not having to look back the whole time?
Maybe just grab a copy there. So Brent Schoonover did a variant cover for Dick Tracy #1, which honestly is way better than, not to take anything away from anybody else, but it's better than the A cover. So we ordered a number of those in. And then Ben Percy is on Darth Maul, Black, White, and Red.
Yep.
Yeah. I always get the order on those wrong. So and so that's another Percy book, and both of whom are friends of the store. We're looking to line up now something with Brent to be able to come back down to the store again and do another event here. So does great commission work and really love his stuff. So, and just a super nice guy to boot. We did have some notable mentions as well. Duke was really good. It wrapped up the whole Duke storyline and gets you ready for the new Destro mini, which if you've been reading the Energon Universe stuff, be sure to get in your subscriptions for that because that'll be a hot book as well. You had another couple.
Oh boy, I had so many new issues of Feral and
Dawn Runner. There was another Ram V book. Yeah.
Honestly, there's too much. Like, I got home last night to read my stuff, and I'm just like, how am I going to get this done in time?
Yeah, I really like the Avengers wrap up of the whole Sentinel thing, the Stark Sentinels.
Yep.
That was really interesting twist.
Yeah, a bunch of good X-Men stuff this week. We're near the end of Percy's Wolverine run.
Yep.
You got Kieran Gillen on both X-Men Forever and Rise of the Powers of 10. If you are getting those, read Rise before X-Men Forever. They even have a little thing in Forever being like, hey, go read this one first. But no, they're like, it's probably my favorite of like the like end of the Krakoan era books. Those two just kind of like telling like the like little side stuff about like how they're like maybe actually going to win this.
Yeah. Very cool. Oh, and Kevin Eastman, TMNT fame's got the Drawing Blood book that he's writing now, and they do a kind of a fun spot where he does part of the art and a flashback on it. And man, I know that technically speaking, Laird and Eastman, like, their work is pretty, I don't know, rough, but it's got such charm, and it's part of the reason why the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles run took off. But they did a really good job of presenting it in here. It looks really cool. So anyway, yes, now we'll wrap it up. So we'll be back.
We got one last thing though next week.
The Free Comic Book Day? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Free Comic Book Day, May 4th. I think we ordered 150% at minimum of everything that we did last year because it was such a huge event. We liked to be able to stretch it out over the whole weekend, and we were out by like 3 or 4 o'clock on most of the stuff.
Yeah,
because Saturday.
Because I remember,
I felt like we ordered.
I remember coming in the next day and being like, "Oh, there's like nothing."
Yeah, it was crazy. So yeah, we've been out advertising it broadly. But if you know anybody who's got kids or loves reading or just loves great storytelling, be sure to send them in because they're literally free comics. You can walk in, grab a copy of each issue, and find out what you're interested in. But the more that we can get people interested in reading comics, the more that we'll get good quality product being put out because people support it. So.
Also, it's Star Wars Day, so come in and buy some Star Wars stuff. We got comics, graphic novels, toys.
Absolutely, and our friends up at Jake's Pizza are going to be doing their annual Star Wars thing. They usually have some people in cosplay, and Wally puts on a pretty cool display with his personal collection and stuff.
And it's like kids, if they like wear like a Star Wars anything, like get like prizes as they last kind of thing. Like it's a great time.
Yeah, it's super cool. So get out there, support those local businesses. And be sure to like, follow, subscribe, leave your comments below, and we'll be back next week with more.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for joining. So much happening.
Yeah. Again, Feral's a great comic. If you don't want to see cute animals get like ripped to shreds, don't read it.
charge.
Also, if you do like seeing cute animals get ripped to shreds, other problems. But I think we said that last time too. But